my normal voice.
Yeah, nothing seems off about that.
Yeah.
All right.
What's up?
So Brandon, you were gonna tell us about your experience for New Year's at the bar, and then you said that you had something else that you wanted. You said.
Do you want to discuss the first part that might hurt a little bit, or?
Oh no! I think we've touched on that already, right?
We've already. That's about it. There's probably other instances, but that's.
No, I think we have the gist of the story up until. Basically, just tell your story with the New Year situation.
And there's going to be more connotation behind that. So
wasn't there also something that you wanted to ask about with a significant person potential situation where you said how do I move forward with this? This is when you talked to me on the phone before we got here. And you said you were going to mention it in the.
Yes, I don't know if you want to warm up to that or not.
Well, so tell your New Year's story and then we can talk about it.
All right, so New Year's, right? So my friend. He's not drinking. I was drinking. We go to a bar, and right now the bar seems like it's kind of closed or something like that. We just walk in and they cleared house, but since we didn't know that was the case, they probably just let us walk on through. So I got on Long Island, and the first bartender was cool with it. I had a little bit of conversation with her, but then the next one came in, and by that time I already finished my first Long Island, so I asked him for another one because I'm a fucking monster.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a little bit of conversation, and she goes up to my friend and she says, so I really like the Viking essay that you're going for. And I say, that's good, because that is exactly the thing that he tries to go for nearly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we converse a little bit more, and she is wearing what I believe to be is only a Midwest type thing to do, which is a leopard print yoga pants.
Yeah, that's a thing.
That is a thing, apparently.
Oof.
And then she's probably 33, 34 or something like that. We're having a good conversation, and kind of just out of nowhere, and she started talking about, actually my roommate is the one who compliments her, hey, since you complimented me, I will say hey, those leopard print leggings are fucking fire too, good job. And she was like, thanks, because my coworkers and a bunch of my friends have all been just slapping my ass the entire time this night, which was kind of funny, but it's not usually the type of conversation I really having. But anyway, she goes on to talk about how there was a bar goer who apparently was lesbian and was hitting on her. And she said, I don't really swing that way. Maybe in high school when I was more
liberal
and loose with things. Yeah, I had threesomes, blah blah blah. And she said that, and I was like, oh, okay. And I think that's probably an okay thing for most people to hear. It's just that it's not really my type of crowd. So she says that, and she's like, yeah. So this chick really wanted to go out with me. She kept on. She was pretty adamant about trying to take me home, or at least trying to take me on a date, the next week.
She's the older bartender, right?
This is a 34-year-old. I don't think I really talked about her. And she was thick. But it wasn't the worst thing.
What's the scale? 1 to 10.
I will give her a 6 out of 10.
All right, roger that.
So in my scale, which is binary, 0 or 1. Or yes or no. She was a yes. However, it was very close to maybe as well. I think I would have had to drink a little bit more.
The computer would have had to compute.
Yes.
Right.
And so she mentions that the lesbian chick wanted to go take her out, and my roommate, he's definitely interested in that. I think that type of girl, that type of thickness. He says well, she didn't take you out. I'd be more than willing to go take you out sometime, too. And she was kind of in the middle of a sentence, or just finished one. And I think we kind of just chalked it up to her not hearing it, quote unquote. But I think it was more so the fact that she probably didn't want to go on a date with my friend. Maybe. I don't know. That's up to speculation, I guess. But anyway, we started talking about the leggings again, and she said yeah, no, these things are great, blah blah blah. And then she starts like saying a bunch more, anecdotes about how she gets her ass slapped. And she said, you know what, I'll just show you. So she literally just turns around and says like, here, take a look at this. Which I would say is a fairly blatant, I would say that's a green light. Right? Wouldn't you say it for one of us?
She showed for like clarification.
She turned around
her
and
ass.
showed her ass. Like she didn't,
So
pulled
one
out
of you
her
guys can slap her butt.
Well, I mean, she was behind the counter, and
Okay.
also I wouldn't do that.
Oh,
I-
did she? But did she pull them
She didn't
down?
pull them down, no.
Oh, she just was like, check
She
it
was
out.
Like, here, check it out. Check out my ass in these leggings.
Okay.
Eye candy. Okay, got it. All right,
You
keep. All right.
And so I would say that's a green light for one of us.
Now, how do you define green light?
Green light would be, she's definitely interested. Make some moves. You can probably go home that night. That
Right.
instant.
Okay, so it's agreeable and desirable on her end.
On her end, yes.
One of you is agreeable and or desirable.
Yeah, and then,
Alright.
like, I kind of, I didn't really ignore it, and, like, we just both complimented, like, yeah, no, that looks really good. And, whether or not, I think I'm still kind of on the fritz about whether or not what is the right, I think, response to make when
Usually,
presented with
like,
something blatant like that. Because that's pretty blatant, right?
Yeah, usually you can ask them like, "Oh, do you work out at all?" You
Hmm.
know, to get in shape like that.
That would have been really good.
Yeah, that's usually like
That
a,
would've been
like
really
a
good.
neutral compliment.
Looks like you do some squats.
Yeah, it's like
You
looks
don't
like you squat. a
yeah.
lot.
skip
That's what-
Pilates.
Yeah, well, because it's like, it's a compliment, but it's also like not a very direct, like,
Yeah.
your ass looks great. Because
Right.
I feel like if it's very direct like that,
Mhm.
it's almost off-putting.
Right. Yeah, no, it would be.
Um,
Okay, so are you asking what you could have said? The
yeah,
best
so
thing
that's one of the things I definitely should have said that, if that's the case.
the
Even
best
if I
thing to
wasn't
do is
fine.
to keep it light and funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think my fucking monkey brain just overwhelmed when like
Uh,
she wants the pee pee.
She wants the ball.
She wants the fuck.
All right.
So like that's kind of where my brain goes. Is I think it just kind of gets input saturated whenever something blatant like that kind of happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a green light. When I get a green light, I get input saturated, and I'm kind of in a moot neutral zone, and I don't do enough.
Right.
But anyway, like she, continued talking. She's like, hey, if you guys want to go, like, if you want to come back on next Sunday, then I'll be working here, which was also like another invitation to like, hey, we should meet, or we should at least like talk some more.
Anytime that a woman makes information about where she's gonna be public knowledge to you, that's definitely an invitation to say like, I wouldn't mind seeing you again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and like that would have been like a great thing to follow up on. I think I just simply said like, yeah, we'll see you then, and like that's more dismissive. I think that's not as
In a way, that's kind of like okay, well, and
that's
talk
less
here,
committing. Yeah, that's less committing than it is like, oh, I wouldn't mind seeing you again. But if you said like, oh, I would love to see you again, I feel like that's heightened almost to the point of discomfort. Like, to say like, oh, I would love to see you again. Like, well, I mean, like, it's understandable if you want to see me again, but love to see me again. Like, we only just met. Like, it's just, does that make sense, right?
yeah, you
differences
should not
between
have said
those
that.
statements?
What
Yeah.
did you say?
Yeah, like
Well,
if
no,
you
I-
ask her if there's like, something that will make her more interested to see you next time. Like, yeah, I'll be here again, and I'll either dress a certain way or bring something else. Kind of be like a more.
Oh,
indicator.
I just thought of something funny. You could have been like, yeah, when I come in on Sunday, I'm bringing my lesbian friend with me.
God, that would have been so fucking hilarious.
Yeah. So,
no,
yeah.
but I could have said something funny like that, and like whether or not, like I could have made it simply sound like I was just joking around.
It's always best to joke.
Yes.
It's
I
always
agree.
It's always best
Keep
to
it
joke
light.
with women. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so how did it end up? Like, what actually happened? We're on these hypotheticals. What actually happened?
No, that was it was the non-committed. We'll see you later.
Was that like the end of the conversation, or did
That
you
was the
go
end of
back?
conversation. That was like.
So you guys left.
Yeah, we don't want to like keep you guys here any longer than like 1 o'clock. You guys like want to go home. It's
Was
the
it
New
like your
Year's.
closing time?
Yeah, it was closing time.
Oh, okay.
It was. You don't have to go home.
Did you eventually
You
go
can't
back?
stay
Stay
here.
here.
Yeah.
Like that next Sunday, did you go back?
So he wanted to, and I forgot what I did next Sunday, but I think I was preoccupied.
Mm.
But
Did
also
he
at the
tell
same
you?
time, I wasn't. So I think attention was set on me and not him.
Mm.
So you didn't
Does
go
that
back.
Does that sound bad for me to say?
Did
No.
you not go back since then?
No, I haven't gone back.
Oh, so you have not seen her since the New Year's.
No, I have not.
Okay.
But also, like I said, this is if there was trinary, she would be a solid one. Like this is a maybe. Like,
Yeah, I got you. All right, so, well, all right, so that's the story, right? We're done. Okay. Now, what is the other thing that you wanted to talk about? Like, because I'm curious about this story. I've been wanting to know about this all day.
So the other story is Wednesday. I go to the bar with my friend. And my friend, I mean, I'll give you context if it helps at all. But anyway, my friend, he recently is divorced,
Mm.
and he's kind of learning his social skills back
Mm.
too. And
Right,
like
how to
we
just
had
get
a
back
couple,
out there and
Yeah.
talk to people.
and like sometimes he's, I guess, fairly blatant as well. Like he'll say like some shit that like I wouldn't want him to say, but in this situation, it kind of, I guess, turned out for the better. Anyway, we're just having a good time. We're talking, and it's like the end of our dinner, and one of our so he brought his friend as well, and his friend goes to walk towards the bathroom, and on the way to the bathroom, there's these three brunettes sitting at the bar, and I'm just like, okay, well, I want to go see if any of them are interested in him. So I leaned over to the side and I was looking, and I told him like, hey, shut up for a moment, I'm trying to pay attention. And he said like, oh, are you interested in those three over there? And I was like, well, I wanted to make sure that they were interested in our friend over there. And just so happens the waitress walks by at that exact moment and says like, hey, do you guys need anything else? And he says like, yeah, so our friend over here wants to buy those three girls over there a drink. And so like this is the part where I said like he just says shit blatantly at the time without really like reading that, like, okay, I'm not really feeling it right now. But we start talking a little bit more, and it's funny because the waitress says like, okay, oh, those three over there, like actually one of them is my friend. Like which one did you want to give a drink to? And I opened with just like, you know, honestly, like any of them, like like any of them, just give any of them shots, like that'd be fucking great. But honestly, and I explained to her the whole scenario, and she was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I could still get you guys shots, like if that's what you really wanted. And then like that's when my friend backs off, and he says like, oh no, we were just joking around. And I was like, no, we can't back off at this point. Like we're already in too deep.
Yeah, we've taken up too much of this waitress's life.
We've taken too much time already. And she asked like, okay, so what shots do you want to get him? And like my friend said like, oh, just a normal vodka shot. It's like, no, that's not fun enough.
Yeah, you should go straight for tequila at that point.
Or tequila, like tequila maybe,
Yeah.
because tequila takes your clothes off. It's true.
Yeah, I've heard. There's a song. There's an entire song about that.
Yeah.
But like I want to do like something more fun, and I was thinking like, well, what about like a buttery nipple? And I don't know if they really knew that one or not, or I don't think my friends did either. By then, the one who went to the bathroom came back already, and so we're just kind of thinking, and so like, you know what, Vegas bombs. If like we can't decide on anything good, Vegas bombs is always good. And she said like, well, actually, our other best friend is sitting over there, so I could ask her what should be the shot. And so they kind of do some like intel gathering, I guess,
Right.
essentially for me,
Right,
which
they
is
have
pretty
that
cool. Which I
network.
would say is probably like a good sign, right? Like
Yeah,
if both the waitress and the other friend is willing to work
to help you. Yeah.
then I would say that's a good sign.
Yeah, they don't think you're like too crazy or like, oh.
Or
yeah,
creepy, because they're not gonna let
back
some.
him off. You're like, oh, maybe he's like.
Yeah, well, especially like going back to what I was saying, like, well, you don't want to be like too direct, like you don't want to be like too interested, because that's also off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's like pushing the boundaries. Like, if
Yeah.
they were really their friends, they'd be like, she probably is not. You know,
Yeah.
Oh, she's a recovering alcoholic.
Here at the bar with her friends.
Yeah, her mom just died. I don't think now's a good
It's
time.
like she's the DD. Maybe you shouldn't buy her a shot.
Yeah, I mean they could say all legitimate excuses like that, and you know that should hopefully work.
Yeah, they saw you in like a pretty good outlook. Like, okay, this guy
Yeah, I
seems
think so.
decent.
So what happened?
So, you know, some time passes. I have to go take a piss. I go to the bathroom, and like I think one of them kind of pays attention. At first, they don't really seem to pay attention, but like the other friend, the one who's intel gathering, not the waitress, is
Was
talking
this
to him.
before or after the shot? Like,
This is before the shot.
Okay, so
this is after talking to the waitress,
Got it.
and she set out about her mission.
okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming back from the bathroom, and I see the other friend talking to them, intel gathering,
Mm-hmm.
or just bullshitting. But one of them does kind of look at me, and was like, okay, well, that's maybe a good sign. Like a singular glance isn't much, but eventually the shots do come, and I think the waitress is the one who gives it to him, and probably says like, okay, it's from those 3 boys over there, like 3 girls, 3 boys, like it makes sense. And I don't know if she had said like, okay, this one wanted to give you this shot. Like I said before, I was like, literally give any of them a shot. That'd be fine. But my friend, like the other one who kind of like started this whole fucking thing, was like, look at Brandon go. Look at him, just smiling, just smirking his little like shitty grin.
Yeah. Yeah.
While they give the shots. So maybe that was like a good thing or not. I don't know. But they take their shots and they're still kind of just conversing, and like they all 3 look over and they're like, okay. They kind of just reconvene. But one of them, every now and again, and this is probably like within a 10-minute time span, every once in a while we'll just like look over at our table and kind of like flick her hair, do that whole thing. So I would say that she was interested, at least, and I was the only one who was actually like, whose face was actually facing towards the group.
Yeah, I feel like that was like a sign, like, hey, come over here or something.
Yeah.
So I think in that situation, I think it's actually better, since I put the effort forth to actually buy them a shot.
Right.
You wait for them to
wait
come.
for
Yeah.
them, they come to me.
I would agree.
Like, I was in a situation where, I don't know, it was weird. Like, me and my friend were just like staring at this girl because she was really attractive, but she was with her friends, and we're kind of debating like, should we go over there? And in that instance, like, she went to us and be like, hey, it's our birthday and stuff, like, or it's one of their birthdays.
Yeah.
And they're like, you want to hang out with us tonight? And we're just like, does this happen a lot? You just look at a girl and
Sometimes
she
it
just
does.
invites you to stuff?
Yeah, it happens.
Because it was one of those looks like, oh, we're obviously attracted, like, to her, but it wasn't in like a creepy way. But they were just like, yeah, we're just out here trying to have fun. It's like, this is my friend, she's a single mom, like trying to hint at something, and we're just like, what do we do at this point?
Yeah, child support. We
Yeah.
need
Child support immediately. Do you have TRICARE?
child rearing. Yeah, that's cool. So what ended up happening with your story here?
So every once in a while,
Hair
flick
flip.
her hair.
Yep.
Hair flip, and there's 3 of them, and they're all, honestly, now that I think about it, my eyes are kind of bad, but I think they were all hot. There was a hottest, and the one that came over was not the hottest, but like still like.
Yeah, you can go wrong.
That's
at
nothing.
That point.
That's not too much of a thing to scoff at. Still very pretty. Came over after her friends moved away from the bar, from where they were hanging out at, and just swapped to a table nearby, which I guess is kind of weird now thinking about it.
Did they do that just because?
She was gonna make a move.
I think they actually wanted the tables to integrate, but this is around like 8:30 p.m.
Oh, they're like,
on a
hey,
Wednesday.
we'll
So I
move
was
over
like,
here so you guys can sit with us.
yeah, I think that's what it was. But I at that time I said like, hey, I gotta leave pretty soon because this is kind of late, and I need to like, I already have some other prior engagements I need to take care of.
Yeah,
Not other women. Yeah. No, I was just playing video games with the boys.
Can't leave them hanging.
You can't leave them hanging. No, this is actually like 10 o'clock. What am I fucking talking about?
10 o'clock.
This is 10 o'clock. And I said like, yeah, no, we gotta leave sometime soon. They come over, or at least one of them does. She introduces herself and says like, hey, thanks for the shots. Blah, blah, blah. My name's Adriana. And, she kind of, I don't want to like demean it by saying it's kind of her resume, but she kind of goes through like very simple things like, hey, I'm 23. I'm going to med school. I'm not actually from this town, but I'm kind of a little bit far away, blah, blah, blah. And like, we have very I guess surface level kind of just conversation.
Mm.
Especially when she's like talking to like three dudes that she doesn't know. I mean, so I will say that I probably should have kept it lighter and more funny. But like, you know, I was still very cordial, and I was like, you know, blah blah blah. And she said like, well, you guys gonna be hanging out anytime, or are you guys about to head out? And I said like, yeah, I was about to head out myself, which was true. And she said like, oh, and she was a little bit disappointed at that point, but she was like, oh, okay, whatever. And you know, we have a little bit more talk, and then she says like, okay, well, it was nice talking to you guys. And before she left, I said like, well, hey, wait up, can I get your snap real quick?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I got her snap. And this is day 2 of since getting her snap, and I'm wondering, on your guys' 2 inputs, what should I say to this chick? Like, you know, set up a date sometime next week, I think is the plan, but I'll let you guys talk about it a little bit more.
Oh, because you gotta go potty.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you know, obviously she was interested in him. To give out her Snapchat information, I don't know if she could be a little bit more direct, and it's like you can ask her for more, like, what's her number type thing,
Yeah.
and then just like call her, you know.
Snap is super easy to accidentally ignore.
Yeah, Snap is like one of those medias where if I don't use it too much, I'm just gonna ignore it. So whatever you post in there or try to send to me, I might not even see it
For days or weeks or months. Yeah. Because it's very hard. So...
if she's interested, you know, either something simple as like a coffee date would work, or just like, hey, you know, it's getting cold. If you want to go to my place, we can just watch a movie, some TV shows type thing. But she did mention that she lived a little bit further away, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
how far away is a little bit further away?
like, are you willing to make that drive?
I honestly can't remember how far away it was. I mean, if at most it's probably like 30 minutes away.
Would you be willing to make a drive?
I think she said that she still currently goes to Swick, which is like...
Oh, that's close
right
enough.
next to base,
Yeah.
so-
That's close enough.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the question. What do you intend to do with my daughter? No, I'm just playing. So I think that Ben made a good point, and this is just like for future reference thing. What is the lady's name? Adriana, yeah. All right, so you'd be like, hey, Adriana, I don't know if you remember me, but I bought you a fucking shot. Spent my hard-earned money, taxpayer dollars on you to drink alcohol.
And your friends,
right?
First of all.
No, you used to be like, hey, Adriana, this is, insert name from X bar.
It's me.
I wanted to see if you would like to get a coffee at, like, whatever coffee shop name, just so that I could, like, see you in a public setting. This is like, just so we can chat or whatever, like, hang out. Because, like, I have time on this day, at this time. I'd like to take you to this place. And it's like that simple. Because when you're...
How far can this place be? Can this be someplace in St. Louis, since we're, you know, most people are around 30 to 40 minutes away from St. Louis? Or should it be something more local?
So that's up to you, because...
yeah, if she's interested, she'll make that drive.
Yeah,
because if she was willing to go to the bar that I met her at, there was a coffee shop literally on the same block as that bar.
So that's perfect. Okay. You say, because, like, hey, this is where I met you. There's a coffee shop that's, like, really close to where I met you. I'd like to meet you there on this day at this time. It's when I'm available. And if not, like, let's look and see if you know, your schedule matches up with mine on whatever day in the future.
Fair.
Because, like, conversate with her at that point.
Right. And it's so, remember when we talked about this.
And that should be, like, within the first message that I sent her is just like, hey, you, it's me. Bought you a shot the other day. I was wondering if you're able to meet up this date, this time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be one message, or it could just be like platonic, where it's like, hey, I'm this person that bought you this shot. I don't know if you remember me, but you know, I wanted to reach out and say
I want to say I don't know if you remember me because I feel like hey, if you don't remember me,
I wasn't. It's not worth my time.
Not worth my time. Yeah.
Right. So then, yeah, no, you're right. It would be something along the lines of, yeah, no, just make it one message, because then it's like you want to cut the small talk out as much as possible when it comes to like texting.
Mm-hmm.
Your text game should literally just be to set the date up to see her.
Okay.
That's all that it's for. Text, like, that's what texting is for, is to set the next date. And if there's any change, you text to make the change.
Yeah.
And that's
and
it.
If she has a change, she texts, and then I'm just like, well, maybe I'll make another attempt.
Like, so
I will
here's
make
what you
one
say.
more attempt.
Here's what you say when a female tries to change the plan. You're like, hey, I am interested in meeting you, and if like that's not a priority for you, that's fine. I'm just not going to. I'm just going to remove myself from the equation.
Yeah.
Because then it's like you put it all on her to set it up.
Yeah. And
But it should all come from you.
I do think that. So while I think you should make it a firm stance to not be walked on, which I think is what you're trying to establish.
Right. That's what I'm
say
saying. You can't be walked on.
Yeah. Don't get yourself walked on when you say that. But also at the same time, people do get busy. People can have a change of plan, and it's okay one time.
Right. Legitimately.
Yeah.
Like if you say, hey,
Literally, yes.
if she's like, yo, my sister is in the hospital, like she's having a baby, can we, reschedule coffee?
What if she says like something like, oh, I'm gonna meet some other friends during that time?
That I have a problem with.
You have a problem with that? Okay.
Yeah, because like if I'm a priority, then I'm a priority. If I'm not, then I'm not.
Fair.
Like that's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
because that's not too big.
so because like here's the thing. So you set a date, right?
Mm-hmm.
You set a date and time with this person, and then on the day of, she's like, oh, my friends. You know what I'm saying?
Should be like.
She
if
should
it's
be
a
like,
coffee, if it's a coffee place, and say it's during the weekday,
right,
it's after work.
right.
How long should said date last?
You can sit in a coffee shop for 2 hours. Like 2 hours can go by in a coffee shop like nothing.
Yeah.
Like nobody's business. So like 7:30, if you meet her at 5, as long as the conversation is going well, there's no reason why you couldn't leave the coffee shop at 7:30.
Yeah. Is there a hard time? So I feel like.
You should definitely have a hard out.
Okay, a hard out. Okay.
Yeah, like
Not just a
because
hard
you yeah, not a hard on. You should have a hard out because the reason for that is because you're implying the fact that your time is valuable.
Yes.
And that you're a busy person,
And I usually.
and your schedule is like, I have blocked off this 2-hour window for me to spend time with you, and once that 2-hour window is over, I need to leave.
Yeah.
So if it turns into something where it's like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it turns into something where it's like, oh, I see, like you said, a green light, and I could go maybe make a move to invite you back to my place. Because how close is this place to your house?
It's about like 20 minutes away.
Maybe not.
A little bit less than 20 minutes.
Maybe not. So 20 minutes away from your place, probably wouldn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You meet her there because that's close. You guys met close to that place. So that's where you should meet for the first time. You have your 2-hour window hard out at this time. And as you're leaving, you set the next date.
Okay.
And there's no reason to really text besides like...
And the next day could be on a weekend, on a more...
Right, on a
basis.
weekend, on a place that's like more comfortable for either her or you.
Yeah.
You guys could figure that out. But like as you're leaving, you're like, hey, listen, we're getting close. It's like 6:30. I have to leave soon. So I'd like to just go ahead and, set the next date. And then once the date is set, I like how you just like...
It was like a...
that was a very satisfied look that you had. You set that next date, and then you're like, okay, it's 6:30, or I'm gonna have to leave soon. I'd like to set the next date with you. Where's somewhere? Or no. You can't open it up like that. You have to be like,
let's
I
say-
want to take you out to dinner.
Let's say during the conversation, I hopefully learn what her like favorite food is.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to do that.
During that time, basically the only time that you're speaking is to ask her more questions about her.
Yes.
That's really it. You're like, if she asks you questions about you, you answer it and then immediately follow up with, like, don't spend any amount of time talking like, oh, you know, my mom or my dad or my sister, and then you're telling a story. You don't do that. No. You answer that question, 3 to 5 fucking sentences, and then you go right back to your question. You want her to speak 80% of the time. Because that's providing the idea of like, this person is mysterious and I don't know what he thinks about me. That's what's happening in her mind.
Okay. So like there's some times where, so I said before that I usually come back with like a non-committal response, like very neutral. I should show at least, I personally think I should show a little bit more interest, but I also am aware that if I show too much interest, it can be off-putting.
I feel like you should go more beyond neutral when you're in that kind of setting.
It should be beyond neutral.
So it should be on neutral. It should be pleasant and funny. Like lighthearted. It should be like everything that you say, whatever. Okay, so let's just say like,
There's gotta be like hypotheticals that we can go through.
Right. So we'll go through some hypotheticals real quick. She's like, oh, you know, so she said she's in med school, right? She told you that she's in med school. You'd be like, hey, how's med school going? Blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, oh, you know, it's super stressful, la-di-da-di-da. And then you say something, you know, lighthearted about people getting sick, you know, or like whatever the thing is that she's studying, you can make a joke about that. And then it's like, you know, this is light and funny or whatever, right? Because it's like med school is a very stressful situation. So you just make it light. And then, or you can, you know, if she's in med school to be a nurse, you could just like shit on nurses. Like, you know, like doctors make so much more money.
Yeah.
You know, like
I think that's a good way of actually going about it. Like, oh, just a nurse? You're not
I would never trust a nurse to take care of me. Like,
It's not a doctor.
Yeah.
Just a nurse.
yeah,
Oh.
you're oof. Ugh, I don't know.
And obviously that can only go so far. You can't just shit
Right.
on her
That can't be the.
relentlessly.
Yeah. Well, I try to. I've always tried to like shit on. I shit on you. Yeah, nurses in general. But I like typically, what I've always tried to do is just like, is to make jokes at their expense in a way that doesn't make them feel bad.
Okay, that's good.
Like it.
I do think that sometimes at a certain point it can be overbearing.
Yeah, there is a line. You just have to like be on the edge of that line, of where it's a joke that's funny, and she's, you know,
It definitely has to get her thinking. Though.
one of the best things that you could ever hear a girl say is like, I can't believe that you would say something like that as she's laughing. You know what I'm saying? Because you're right on the edge of like offensive.
And that's when you start pulling it back, maybe a tad.
Nah, I embrace that. I embrace that shit. Like me personally, but that's my personality type. I take risks.
Fair. So I also got to mention that I think I need to play into my personality type, which is I think more cordial and like I guess more kind. Like I feel like when people see me at the bar, they will say like, okay, well he's actually a kind-hearted person and like, you know, not really. So he.
I mean,
Doesn't do a lot of like he's not into bullshit.
yeah, if you want to go that route, play to your strengths.
I mean,
you know?
yeah, that's my strength. Like I'm not the asshole archetype, but I would say that I'm at least the nice, no shit taking type. Do you have input?
Either some girls will just think that's like a turnoff, or some people will just respect you for it, and you just have to take either one of
Somewhat,
those,
but
yeah.
I feel like there's been a couple that have like just been like, you know what, maybe I don't want to be with an asshole.
Yeah.
Once, like maybe just this one time, I don't want to be with an asshole who kind of just, you know, shits on me all the time.
I don't know, man. I don't know what that's like. I just,
Oh man, it's worked for me.
it's always worked for me. Like I've never had a. I mean, but you know.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the I think adventures I guess you've had has been non-committal and like you haven't been expecting a lot out of it. And
Yeah, that's the
I'm
part.
sure that has like some sort of appeal, and it's not an appeal that I understand. So that's why that's a weakness for me.
Right.
A strength for me is like, hey, I want to treat you with respect, but I also don't want to like come off as like some simpy fucking douchehole.
The more you think about that, the more you get in your own way.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm talking about when I say like, okay, well maybe I'm too neutral. I need to
Yeah.
be beyond that. I need to show a little bit more.
What does that look like to you? Because like, okay, I could tell you all day, every
It's
day.
probably like a super like accurate niche that I'm trying to hit right now, but it does exist.
I mean, I don't think that's like a total negative thing. It's either you just find that kind of person that just accepts you for it or not. If you just don't want change.
I don't.
So
I don't really
what
think
I would
that
be-
it's got to be something that's said like, oh, accepts you for it. I feel like that is something that I actually want to strive for. Is nice guy, but not too nice. You know.
When you fall into that, because the risk that I think that you end up taking when you're that way is you meet someone, because everyone plays a role in a relationship.
Yeah.
You have a role and she has a role.
So, go on.
There is the type of there is a type of woman that exists that wants to be in control of everything. And you run into a risk
And is
of
okay with being in control because sometimes
Right.
they do take control and they are actually not okay with it.
yes. So there's women that like they're strong-willed, but they actually want to have a person tell them where we're gonna eat.
Yeah.
Like if you so these strong-willed women, I think a strong-willed woman is desirable. Like
Yeah.
that's the type of woman that I would want to pursue. I have to, in order for me
That
to
is the
have,
woman that you have.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I have my wife is a strong-willed woman. I have her because I had a direction in my life that I want to pursue.
Okay.
And because she recognizes that in me, this is I'm speculating, but it's what works because I act as though this is true. Because I know where I want to be with my life. She's willing to, she acknowledges that, and it's like a safe place for her.
Okay.
Because I know, hey, I want to go to this place. I want to do this thing. This is the place that I want to go with my life.
Do you, or should you, expect part of her will to kind of support you? Obviously support you, but how much are you wanting her to I guess how much are you willing for her to support you
So
in your attempt?
at least for me, I want someone that's kind of like a boss type woman that can be very independent, and if it comes down to it, I want to be I can stay home and take care of the kids kind of thing.
Really?
Like if she can support me and she's happy what she does, I can take over that role of just that supportiveness. I feel like
I would say that
someone
you
that can
might be.
pursue like that, because I'm if I have to always make the decisions and things, it's going to become a little bit too rough, because I don't really want someone who's complacent in life, who's yeah, I just work at a movie theater, I'm fine for this for life contacting. You know what I'm talking about?
I know.
You wanna
there's
have-
a good
you need to
happy
have-
medium in between that. Though.
Okay, so listen, Michelle runs a lot of shit in the
Yeah.
house. The shit that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle 100%. Okay, so just for example purposes, and this is not necessarily something that I want out into the world, but just for the conversation of the point of the conversation, when it comes to the way that shit is set up inside the house,
That's her domain.
I could give a fuck
Yeah.
about the way that things are done inside of the house. But
Okay.
she has a very particular way of what she wants things to be, And sometimes she looks to me for my opinion, and because I don't really have an opinion, I have to say like,
You have to come up with one?
basically, yeah, I have to be like, this is the one that will work the best, because that helps her like eliminate possibilities, and then she can make it work with that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like she has a vision in where she wants to go.
It's like, this
And-
is where the couch goes, this is how the dishes are.
Right.
Like,
Right. And what I basically am, I'm like the guardrails so to make sure that she doesn't go off the deep end.
Yeah.
you're like
So,
trying to make stuff make more sense. In a way
Right.
For her.
Yeah, like I'm literally the thing that like pulls her back into the place where it's like, okay, this is the left and right boundary of where we can be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that works the best. And like honestly, a woman like that that's gonna be making like and having a woman that's gonna have aspirations, because Michelle has aspirations. My wife has aspirations for what she wants to do with her life, and in order for me to be supportive of that, I have to keep her like I have to eliminate some possibilities for her. Like she needs to be focused on accomplishing those goals. You know what I mean? Like if she wants to go and be a very successful businesswoman, or if she wants to go and be like whatever her goal is, I have to make sure that I'm keeping her honest to that. So that's the way that you like I guess would be able to accomplish that. Like because like I would be afraid just by the way that you were describing it. I would be afraid that maybe she wouldn't respect your opinion.
I would say,
Does that make sense?
yeah, no, I agree with that.
like, I would give my opinion to a point where it makes sense logically, and if she can't follow that path, then I think that's like one of the
I
deal
feel like
breakers.
that loaded statement, that is a loaded statement because when you say women and logic, most people are going to be like fucking thrown off their hands.
Sure, yeah, women are more emotional creatures.
It's true, but I mean, like, I do think that a lot of emotion, and this is probably another can of worms to open up, is like a lot of emotion does kind of come off of logic, and that's you know we could debate that all day, but the thing is that I think the very simple statement that Andrew was talking about was that you have to be willing to make the decisions when she is kind of asking for one. Like if she is asking you, you should have something ready.
Which one of these do you like? Like, like okay, so like an example is the curtains. The curtains that we recently bought. Which pattern of white do you like?
I can't do that.
No,
That's
what you
I'm
okay?
saying-
So here's the deal.
Yeah,
You just have to pick a pattern.
I'm like, if this curtain functions like a curtain, it has the right length.
Yes, and that's understandable. We
It
get
blocks
it.
out the sun more. It has like a more beneficial route to it. Then I'll accept that curtain.
Yeah, but
if
on a
it's-
more like pragmatic, like practical approach, like further going into pragmatism,
Mhm.
like you have to also understand that like your significant other who's asking that question wants a definitive response from you. And
'Cause-
sometimes that doesn't require
like
a
stuff
lot
that
of
doesn't
forethought.
really matter, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it doesn't require like a lot
you
of
still need
passion.
to give you like some opinion. I feel like that's the.
You
part
don't need
I
to be
struggle the
emotionally
most.
invested in that decision.
Yeah.
What you need to do is you need to recognize that this is a situation where your significant other is asking for your opinion so that they can make a decision.
Yes.
That's what's happening. Because like she,
Kind of hard to recognize for me.
oh, but it comes with practice.
Right.
Fair.
She's looking for you to say like, I need a direction, because she has a vision, but she just needs a direction to go. Like her vision might be, I want, purple and turquoise to be the theme of the house. So between purple and turquoise vase, which vase do you think we should get? And you're like, it really doesn't fucking matter to me, sweetie, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, I could give a fuck because like I don't care. It's a vase. I'm never gonna look at it. It's an aesthetic.
But you do have to give
But
one
you-
singular fuck.
You should just be able to say like, let's do. And here's the other thing: if you can say, let's do the purple one because it's gonna go well with the drapes and the carpet and the this and the that, then it's gonna be like, oh yeah. And she's gonna be able to like wrap her mind around that and say,
And at the same time, yeah.
it's going to be like she's going to be able to have a vision. Like her vision is going to come to fruition because you gave that opinion.
I feel like I can do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that too much effort
Yeah,
from
it's
my side.
probably a lot easier to do than what you're.
It's way easier to do. The hardest part of it is like recognizing what the question is.
Right.
Because when a woman asks you for your opinion, she's looking for you to, like, in my opinion, she's looking for you to give her guidance.
Yeah, and like there's like another question that could be like, maybe you already have drapes or curtains, and she says like, do you think that the ones that we bought are actually the ones that we need for the house? Now that's a different question because like, okay, whatever decision has been made, she's not.
But I'm
questioning it.
married and you guys aren't,
Yeah.
right? So these examples are not necessarily like the right ones to give
Yeah.
because you're not going to get that question.
Would you say that this is a tangent then to the original kind of like what sort of guidance I should get for chick at the bar? Have we gotten
Re-ask that.
too far?
Ask that question in a different way.
Have we gone too far away from the original conversation of chick at the bar?
No, I don't. I don't believe so because I think the point of being able to. Ah, shit! I have to piss.
No, what women want.
I'll be right back.
All right.
I'll be right back. You guys talk about. You can continue this conversation.
So the other thing I wanted to mention was that you had mentioned that you kind of wanted a chick who was used to being boss and able to make decisions for herself.
Right.
But enough to the point that she would be okay with you staying at home with the kids.
Cause like I feel like I'm a pretty neutral person when it comes to decision making. Like I can agree or disagree either way, and it'll come down to what makes more sense in my mind. There's a certain amount of choices that are out there that I feel like I don't really know how to explain it.
Decisions in regards to what?
Just anything really.
Well, I mean, if it's so, I feel like you probably need to like structure that a little bit more if that's the case, because based on that description at first, I feel like you'd be hard pressed to find a woman who'd be okay with a stay-at-home dad. Like that is actually a lot more rare.
Like
Then
I
I think
don't want to
most
get to a
people
point
are willing
where
to
like
admit.
a stay at home. I'm just saying like someone that's more assertive in their goal. Like I just don't want their life to end up stagnant.
Yes, and I agree with that, and I think
like when
while they can have their own ambitions and they can have their own like intentions, which is a good thing, they should be autonomous. When they defer to you for decisions, you should be ready and willing to make that decision. Because that's kind of like, I don't know if we want to go like I mean, it sounds like super conservative, right? That like the guy has to make decisions,
right,
but like in reality,
trying to like do
kind of what has to happen.
Like,
Is this what we want our podcast to be?
I don't know. Like you know
Sometimes.
when you're talking about like marriage and stuff, you're like you're thinking like, okay, what kind of girl do you kind of want to marry, right? And it comes down to choices. Like I feel like a lot of girls can be like the one. There's not like too many factors that eliminates them.
Maybe, because I feel so. I think I at once had that same mindset where, like, well, technically, a lot of women. I could work with a lot of women if I so chose to. However, and like, it's not just
like
simply
I'm at that
saying,
neutral stance where it's like they're kind of a neutral partner where I can work with their problems. And they should be able to work with my problems.
And I feel like that puts a lot of people with that mindset. It puts them at danger of, you know, the whole settling thing, right? Like you don't want to like settle with anybody.
Right.
Because there's a certain hard line that you do have that you may not know yet when you're like actually in a relationship with somebody. You know, like maybe just like one awkward ass thing that they say, like maybe they just don't jive well with your friends. You know, how
it's
much
like this
do you
person
want?
does not get along with my mother whatsoever. I cannot marry her.
Especially like with family, like that makes a lot of sense. Like I think
Is that a
bare
deal
minimum,
breaker? Sorry.
depends, I guess, on your family, really.
Yeah.
I would say if my family member is unreasonable to a certain point where I might agree with their opinion, then maybe.
Who is their opinion?
The
You're
girl.
you're a girl. Okay. Yeah.
The girl's opinion. It's like that
You
might
look
be
good.
a reasonable thing where it's like I still agree with her and I don't want to break up with her because they don't get along with my mom because of this one.
Yeah, one of this reason that you kind of
Subject,
sympathize with, like okay, my mom was in the wrong, or I could see how, very reasonably, how you could disagree with this sentiment.
Yeah, it's like my wife's a Jordan, supporter, but my mom's like a Trump supporter, and they just don't get along whatsoever in politics. I think that's a pretty big thing to not get along with.
I think
Sure.
people put too much fucking emphasis on politics. Like
Well,
your
no, I
political
think
stance
politics
shouldn't.
is a big thing, I think, in relationships. I think it's like
If your politics don't match up, I think that's just a deal breaker.
Can
sometimes.
are we
Depends
close
on
to
how
what
much.
What do you want to fill it up with?
I don't know.
I got
Whatever
this.
you got, bud. I don't know how to. Is this like a twisty?
I got this.
Is it a twisty
and
or
you
a?
hit the button.
No, you're gonna have to do it. I'm sorry. I hate putting the ball in your court so that I can continue to vape your vape.
Because I'm a baller, and I want to know
I
how
also
to
got
ball.
this peach if you want. What kind of flavors you want?
Dude, don't stop giving me so many options. Just fill it up. All right,
Just
no,
pick
I'll
one.
be assertive. Hold
Yeah,
on.
you gotta be assertive. You gotta pick.
Coastal
your
Clouds,
poison.
the one. I don't like the one.
There's also this one.
What is this one?
I'll withhold my
There's
judgment.
also this one.
Yami, milk. What is this?
There's also this one.
One of them.
Jesus
milk.
Christ! Stop.
Dude, that's a lot. That really is. But
Just
just choose
stop.
one.
Yeah, just choose one
Just choose one.
to keep the
And
vision
you'll probably
alive.
like it.
Yeah, it'll be okay. I'm gonna go with Coastal Clouds.
Okay.
Iced melon
Variety
berries.
is the spice of life.
That's what they say. Someone said that. Which tube does it go on? I see it. I see
Like,
it.
I don't
when I
know who's
feel
that.
like you're dating, like a good thing to look at is
So
like you match up with religion and politics.
religion, I think, is a big thing. Definitely, obviously, your idea of what love should be is, I think, first and foremost.
Ooh, we're going off in the deep end,
I
boys.
guess so. I don't know where the fuck we're going, but anyway,
All
I'm gonna
right.
keep on swimming.
Like, could you really date someone that's kind of like meant for you in like a personal way, but then they're like, yeah, I'm anti-vax and I disagree with like the military and all this.
Well, I think that question in itself probably kind of showcases how,
How are they meant for you?
yeah, like your experience. Like, if you haven't met somebody like that who, like, okay, well, they're actually really nice in like most aspects, except for the fact that they're anti-vax.
Will that be a turn off for you though?
Yes. It
Me?
would.
No.
It would actually. Anti-vax?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Well,
bother
if
with
you're
that
talking
at
about the
all.
fucking COVID vaccine, but I think for now we're talking about just in general.
Oh, vax in general?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's dumb.
So the COVID vax is also like another, and I think that's more recent.
That's a
think that's more,
subcategory.
That's a subcategory, and you could probably that's like its own kind of like special case.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like certain things will make sense, but when your logic just doesn't match with theirs to that certain point where it's like, I disagree with you wholeheartedly, and I don't think this is gonna work out.
I want to take a step back for a second because you mentioned something that I have even told my wife, and
Oh my god.
yeah, you talked about how you felt like there were multiple people that could be the one. There is so many fucking people on this planet. There's so many goddamn people. Like the variety that you can encounter in this life, especially with social media and all the different platforms that you can have available to you. It's incredible, bro. Like
the fact that my personal thing is that has just been, I think I've lacked the patience and therefore like the actual, I think, passion to actually want to meet somebody, because honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, the reason that I lacked patience about like random bullshit like, okay, maybe I should get the vax or maybe I shouldn't, something even as serious as that, I'd be like, listen, I literally don't give a shit. I kind of just want to have sex. Like, could be something as simple as that, or it could be just like, I just want like personal attention, it comes from a very, what I'm trying to say is that it's coming from a very, I think, selfish place. Is the reason why I haven't been
Like,
as
met-
active as I probably should have been.
Or met a significant other.
Say that again?
Or met a significant other. Like, you've turned yourself off from it because of, like, selfishness.
Yes, it was. I think it's for selfish reasons why I haven't like gone out, like, because you gotta try and live.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be like, when you get older, I think it's kind of hard to pursue the one that got away kind of type of feeling. Or
I
it's
mean,
like,
one might even say that's kind of like a fruitless, kind of pointless endeavor in the first place.
So, yeah, that goes to my point. My point is, there are so many people in this world that there isn't really a one that got away.
There's
You do
no
that.
reason to have unrequited love.
You do that to
Or very little
yourself.
reason.
Yeah, you do that to yourself. There is so my attitude, which for better or for worse, every relationship that you have, in my opinion, has its moment, right? Like, there are moments, and honestly, the fucking career field that we're in, like the career path that we have chosen, is what taught me this definitively. Because I
Your
have
specific career path or military? In
just
general?
military in general.
Okay.
I have so many friends that if it wasn't for the military, I would have never met them.
Yeah.
But because of the military, I met them. And if the circumstances of the military were different, they would be lifelong friends that I would never, ever lose, that I would talk to every single day.
Like me.
Right.
Yeah.
But when those friends are, 12, 15 hours away from me because they live in a different time zone or something like that, or like I had met a person in basic that I was like, oh, bro, we're going to be best friends, but he was from Russia. Like, and now I have no idea where that guy is.
Yeah.
There's been many people in my career where it's like, oh, we're going to be really good friends. We're going to be friends for this time. And then once I leave or they leave, I don't ever speak to them again. But in my mind, we're still really good friends.
Yeah.
Everybody has a moment for your life where they're beneficial. And there's so many people in life. There's so many women out there, like, that could be beneficial for your life. You can't fret over the one that got away because it really doesn't exist.
I feel like the one that got away is always like the one that just ones up the other girl that you're talking about. Like, okay,
But
it's also, so what he's trying to say is that it's usually an illusion.
yeah,
It's an illusion that you
kind of
tell
illusion's
yourself.
Like, oh man, she's doing all this stuff that's really great and that worked out for me, and then it's like I can't find anyone that can compete with her pretty much.
But I also feel at the same time that if you value somebody that much to where you're letting it get you down, that also demeans you and also devalues you to other prospective like ones that got away or ones as great as the one that got away.
Yeah. I think you just... Go ahead.
I kind of feel like it's like, you just had like a regular apple and then it's like you find like that really good apple and like, man, where did they get this from? And it's like, I want to get back to that like kind of level type with the relationship. It's like
Not every apple is on that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Also,
all
a lot
about
of
frequency.
apples changes.
Right.
A lot of apples change.
You could have an apple that was better, but you just met them at the wrong time.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that have a lot of potential and then just muck it up. Like, that's also true. That's also a very cynical way of looking at it. However, there are people that A, can change, and B, there's a lot of people that can be just as good, if not better,
Right.
than the one that you're thinking of.
You just have to open yourself up to the possibility that something else is out there, that you will find it. But the biggest thing that I'll tell you, man, and this is like something that I had to learn, the more that you work on yourself and just focus on you and making yourself better in all aspects of life, the more you will attract the person. It's really funny, like, how the universe works. Not putting religion on it, but it's really funny how the universe works. I personally believe that you're always just like missing Mr. Right, Mrs. Right all the time. Like
Yeah.
everybody is just on their flow of life. And then once you start focusing on yourself and you fix your decisions, your circle gets a little bit bigger and then you meet them. Does that make sense?
Fair. Now, it's kind of up to you to make that decision.
Once you do something different, because your circle of decisions and destiny is so small, you're just like barely missing them. Or maybe you're like that. Like you're not. What I'm doing is making circles with my hands and just barely missing.
Right, like those kind of pie charts, but then like that middle that meets.
Right.
Diagram?
Yeah.
Venn diagram. But
Venn
yeah.
diagram.
Okay. Thank you, smart boy. But once you expand yourself, like when you start focusing on yourself and making yourself better, your circle of influence becomes larger, and then you overlap with that person. And now the trajectory of your life can change because you have that person. And if it doesn't work for whatever reason, it just means that the season has stopped where that person is effective in your life and beneficial. And that isn't a bad thing. It's not something to mourn, is what I'm trying to say. Like, there is not really one that got away. And I say that.
And you can meet somebody again
Yeah.
later on.
So what
Say,
ended
like,
up
okay,
happening,
this might actually work.
that's exactly what happened to me. So Michelle and we broke up. Because
Is that during the time in Georgia?
no, this was when I was in Honduras. We broke up in Honduras. Like, I met my wife in Honduras, and that's a crazy thing to think. But I didn't meet her until I started believing that I should be treated better. Because I had a relationship like right before I met Michelle, and I had a kid. So I had a kid, and in my mind, I thought that like I wasn't as valuable as a person anymore. And so I started allowing people that would treat me poorly to treat me poorly because I thought that I deserved it because I wasn't as valuable as I was before I had a kid. And what ended up happening was, as soon as I started believing that I deserved to be treated with respect and I got out of that relationship, within like 2 weeks, I met Michelle. And this was when I was in Honduras, when we were there together. And we went on all these fucking amazing-ass adventures and had the best time ever that you could ever believe or whatever. And it still didn't work out. We still broke up. And we broke up because I asked her about the future. And I asked her in a very, like, punk-ass way about the future.
I could see.
Like,
not that I could see that from you, but I could understand.
Like, because I was afraid of, like, what she was going to say. And I'm not the person that I was then. Like, the me now that's talking now is not who I was at the time when I met Michelle.
Yeah. And that's also not to say that you weren't, like, at a lack of meeting people and...
I had a good skill set to meet people.
Yes.
I just didn't have a good skill set to keep people. Right. So... with the way that I asked her was very like punk ass way to ask her. I asked her about the future, and she made it very clear to me that she knew what she wanted out of life and that she did not want to live in the States. And without me getting clarification on that, I internalized that and was like, okay, so we're not going to have a future together because I eventually have to leave and I'm going to live in the States. Like,
well, that's also
I can't
a very
change.
understandable thing to say. Is like, okay, well, if you're unwilling to bend on such a thing, then I guess we don't have anything further to talk about.
It was really logical for me.
Yes.
And I don't think that she realized, like, I think what ended up happening for her, because
she realized that her value of you was greater than her value of not being in the States.
I don't know if I can say that. I think that the way that she's explained it to me and the way that I understand it is, at the time, she didn't think that I was serious about her. When I was asking about the future, it wasn't registering to her that I was basically like, hey, do you want to like try to make this work?
I want to make this more committed.
Yeah, like once I leave from here, I don't want this to end.
Well, she didn't think she had to give up like leaving Honduras and then just moving.
I think what she was thinking was,
if it wasn't committed, if it wasn't a very serious proposal that you were
like, I didn't like get down on one knee and say like, hey, spend the rest of your life with me. But that's no. So that's the point. Okay, so we broke up, and I came back to the States for a few months, and I was really wrecked. about it. So I
Okay.
talk about don't get yourself like messed up over one person because like there's so many people. I say all that and I still say, okay, I called her, I reached out to her and we made it work. And that was because I felt like I really found a person. Like I felt like I had really found a person that it was worth like putting my pride on the line for it. Because at the time I wasn't willing to put my pride on the line for it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I put myself in a position where it's like, okay, I could really get stepped on here. And you have the right to do that if you want to. And she didn't. And that's why we're married. That's why we're together. That's why we've gone through all the things that we've gone through. But there was a time where we broke up.
I feel like that's really hard. Like when it attacks your pride like that, it's hard to just like let someone do that. But that just shows you how much you loved her at that point.
Yeah, I was willing to take a risk. I wanted to be with somebody that was willing to treat me the way. And I think another thing, it's weird because like in my mind I was like, oh, you know, people from the States are just not like, not to say that nobody from the States would treat me the way that I wanted to be treated, but just like people from the state that I was in at the time, all those people that I was meeting, they were a bunch of bullshit. And I was like, this is like, all of this is superficial. None of this is worth like committing myself to. And all I could think about was like this person that I left that was like, I chose to leave them because I didn't want to put my pride on the line and allow myself to be hurt. And once I did that, I didn't get stepped on. So like there is an element of risk that you should take, I guess, at some point to like make it work. And we worked. We had to work a lot though. Like like dating relationships and married relationships are two completely fucking things. Like they're completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Like completely fucking different. When we got married, that first year, bro, whew, and we talk about it all the time. That first year was like so rough for us because she gave up so much and we both were damaged people coming together to try to move forward with life and like hadn't really dealt with our own shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is what we want the podcast to be,
No,
but
no, it's totally fine because I feel like I think a lot of people need to hear this first of all, because especially going back to how you said your pride was on the line and like you kind of made the logical decision of like, okay, well if this doesn't work, I gotta move on.
If it didn't work, if I put my pride on the line and it didn't work, what I would have ended up doing was just like, well, I'm going to expect I get treated a certain way. And I'm gonna move on from this.
Yeah, and that's all very understandable. And the other part that I wanted to mention was that like, if you're expecting somebody, I guess, to do that, kind of like how Ben was saying about like kind of holding out for somebody who may not feel the same way. It's gone. Train of thought is gone.
There's an element of relationships where it's like, okay, if we're gonna be serious,
yeah,
like I'm gonna lay it out here for you, like because we're dating and we're having a lot of fun, which we were dating and we were having a lot of fun, and I think she was just in that mind of like we're gonna have fun and this is gonna be a moment that we're both gonna remember for the rest of our lives, and when you leave, like it's just like that's it. That's all that Michelle, this is something that we realized later in life, but that's what Michelle believed that she deserved. That's all that she thought that she was capable of having.
So that's another, I think, point to make. Is that
so, and I didn't recognize that. So the therapy and the counseling and the fucking everything that we had to work through, like, and that's what I mean, like, you have to be willing to, the more that you're willing to work on yourself, the more likely you are to be able to meet the person that you're meant for.
Yes.
And you both have to be willing to work on yourself.
Yes.
Because, like, I can't do the work for her no more than she can do the work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take care of me for her as long as she takes care of her for me.
How long have you been in that kind of relationship until you notice?
What do you mean?
Point?
Like, oh, you talking about, like, with Michelle?
Yeah.
So Michelle and I had only been dating. It's ridiculous to say, but we'd only been dating for like 3 months. We'd only met. Honestly, we'd only met
And hung out
like in person maybe 15 times before I asked her about the future. But this was over the course of several months, like three months.
Yeah.
It just was like the restriction. Like we talked every day. Like we talked on the phone every day.
Yeah.
So we got to know each other very intimately as far as like the conversation piece. I didn't want that to be the case. It was just the circumstances that I was in. And when we ended up like getting married, it was very, very much like she came to visit me before we got married.
Yeah.
And in the space in between when she came to visit me, basically to say like, hey, is the magic still there? Like, is this because like people change over time.
You're back in the States by then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is the magic still there? Is this something that is going to work? And she came to visit me, and the magic was still there. I introduced her to my daughter, and my daughter fucking loved her, and my family liked her a lot. And she went back to like Honduras, and she was working, and we were having a conversation, and I was at work during this time, and I was just like, I asked her the dumbest thing ever. I was like, hey, do you think that living the rest of your life with me would be something that you'd want to try to do? That was how I fucking proposed.
So 3 months in, that's when you proposed to her.
It was, no, so like, honestly, it was probably like 6 months of knowing each other.
Okay.
Maybe 4 months of dating, because we broke up. There was a period where we weren't like together.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was crazy quick and fast, and I can't really justify it besides the fact of like our circumstances. Because if it wasn't for our circumstances of like she's in a different country and I want to try to make this work, I know for myself I would not have proposed to her to get married if it weren't for those circumstances. I just knew that was the person that I was going to spend my life with. And as I was saying it, I wasn't even sure if I meant it. To be completely...
And so that's why you say it was the stupidest thing ever, because like you
right.
weren't definitive in your
like the way like it had literally just like it was a thought 2 seconds before I said it. It wasn't like I had been thinking about that for the whole 3 months that I knew her.
Yeah, and sometimes that offers a little bit more merit than I think maybe we'd be willing to give upon hearing that at first.
Dude, I'm being super vulnerable about it. Yeah, we've been married for 3 years.
Yeah,
being super vulnerable about it.
There was a good hunch that you had and you went with it.
I knew that because so in my mind's eye, the way that I saw it, I was like, this is a person that I know I can spend the rest of my life with. Because she supports everything. Like I'm the type of person that all I need is somebody to believe in me. And she supports everything that I stand for. Everything that I say that I want to try to do, she's like, you can do it. Not only can you do it, you'll be the best at it. Because I told her, I was like, hey, I think we could do a podcast. And she was like, you guys would make the best fucking podcast ever. Like, she's such a hype man. And I need that. I need that from her. And I believe that she can do, like, I pump her up all the time, too.
Yeah.
Bro, that first year of marriage though was like so hard because we had to really unpack some shit.
And I think that's what I kind of wanted to get back to was that the fact that Ben was talking about how he doesn't really know that there's like a couple things that he would like from somebody, and then there's a couple definitive things that he kind of doesn't care about, like curtains or some very arbitrary question that would happen, or even when it comes to like political mindset as opposed to this outlook on life. Like,
right, because for me it's like, is this love or not? Like, depending on like the color of the curtains, is this like the point where we get divorced, or is this?
So yeah, you have to understand, like, okay, so this is, man, I'm really, I wasn't expecting the conversation to go this way.
And it might be just something as like you might think frivolous at the time, like something very surface level. And like, I could probably live with this. But then time goes on and like, oh wow, this person's actually pretty hard set on this dumbass value
Yeah.
that I actually don't care about.
Yeah, different people have like set different value levels on things. Like something that registers as like a 2 for you could be like an 11 for them.
Like, what happens is just like gets to a point where like it's too late. Like you're already married, but she gets to a point where it's
And
like,
that's how people get divorced.
oh,
like
I introduced you to my grandma like 2 years later, and it's like, oh, looks like you and my grandma doesn't get along. This is it. This is our. This.
Well-
you know, and that's all like based on circumstance, right? Like
Yeah.
if grandmother is the main child rearing person that they drive, that
She
they
has
take-
all the clout.
She has all the clout. This is literally the person I take all my value from, and you don't agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shouldn't be with you. Like, okay, that's understandable. If people are able to articulate that much, you'd be hard pressed to find that. But like sometimes it does boil down to like, well, it will always boil down to you do not value what I value, and therefore we should probably not be together.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that takes time for you to figure out for yourself, and also it takes time for them to figure out. For themselves.
Like
I wouldn't
doesn't get to
advise.
that point. Like if I break my spaghetti in half before I boil it, it's a deal breaker for a lot of Italians.
I would for Italians. I would not advise doing what I did. Okay, I would advise doing what I basically like do as I say, not as do as I say, not as I do. Okay, because I was like I went off the deep end, but I feel like my situation is the exception that proves the rule.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like
Maybe.
you can't not everybody gets to have a love story where they you meet somebody in a fucking exotic
in
country.
a foreign exotic place, yeah.
And you go on this magical adventure to all these different places, and like you get to experience that kind of life. Like not everybody gets to do that. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just got to meet somebody at a coffee shop and go that route.
Yeah.
Like my life is not something that's easily replicatable.
Replicable.
Replicable.
But yes. No, I didn't want to bring it back to like, okay, to the more simplistic factor of like, say I meet this chick at the coffee shop. I think the other factors that like concern is like, there's a lot of people who, and I used to be this way, not so much anymore.
Used to be's don't get no honey. I just wanted to throw that in there. Go
That's
ahead,
a good
continue.
And it used to be like, okay, I'm very hard set on only having serious relationships. And if you make that a statement in the outset, sometimes that turns some people off.
So I would just say, man.
And I understand, like, so as long as you act in accordance with your rules, then you're okay. But if you say, like, hey, you know what? I'm open to meeting more people. Like, that's okay. You can meet more people. Especially because, like, how the atmosphere is and the culture is, like, now. Is, like, sometimes you just gotta, like, non-committally meet people. See how they are. Because people are just, I guess, scared of their emotions at this
I
point.
think that's true. Because it's, like, a lot of people are, like, so what's your stance on, like, having kids? Like, I want kids in the future. And you're like, that's just not for me right now. And then...
In the future, but...
Yeah, it's like
So
you
you
don't
say
really
in the
know.
future, but like-
You don't really know what's gonna happen. Then it's like your stance can change dramatically. You're like,
Yeah,
I might not
for
be.
a lot, they do.
Women put a lot of value on that idea of a
They
structure
should.
too,
Because they're the ones who have to like
They have-
bear the most of it. But
and they're the ones that have to really consider the timeline.
yeah,
Because
They
there is a timeline for like when is
they bear the most at least at the outset, like because they have to carry to term. They have to like actually.
Yeah, there's a
take
lot
care
of
the kid.
medical issues that gets involved. Like,
That too.
either one, they struggle to have kids and go through a lot of miscarriages, which messes them up emotionally and stuff.
And we try to. I feel like we can try to like demean such a very important topic. I think in this culture, when it comes to like kids, like I feel like okay, it's kind of like a whatever thing. It's like no, actually, like so my ex had a kid, and
Your kid?
no,
Okay.
not my kid. But I was in the position of like, okay, do I want to continue this? Like, how is this going to be in the future? And there's like a lot of things to factor in, right? Like, you have to factor in whether or not they, in the future, would be good mothers. Not whether or not they're good mothers now, but like, okay, what happens when like the kid becomes like a teenager. Like, is she going to be crazy because like she's starting to get the attention of other men, and then she's gonna like freak out on you, or like, oh, she's not doing good enough at school, like, or you want to like discipline her a little bit, like more than what more that she is doing at the moment.
Right, because I've met a lot of people that, like people at the bars, like, yeah, they'll drink every day. They'll drink a lot more than you expect. And it's like, can you stop drinking for like 9 months if you have a kid with them? It's like, I kind of.
Also, yeah, like that's a very more immediate thing to look at, I think. And we may be like going into topics that may be a little bit too intricate and too deliberate. But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I'll bring it back to the fact that like when I go talk to this chick sometime in the future at the coffee shop, I'm gonna let her know, like, hey, or at least through body position and like just general demeanor, like, hey, this doesn't have to mean anything more than it needs to.
I just don't really know what kind of like level of seriousness I need to take on certain dates, or when I meet someone, like how much should they accept me?
And this goes back to
fast?
how Andrew was talking about how like you gotta just keep things lighthearted. Like even though very many things when you're dating have a lot of serious adult implications, and maybe we're more privy to that now in this day and age. We still have to be strong enough to like keep shit light. Like, oh yeah, I'm fully aware that like the future may be crazy. Somebody might have a kid. Somebody might do something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you're able to actually like be centered and be responsible and like be willing to take care of problems, even especially at the beginning of like dating, to kind of show that amount of confidence that you can handle even the invisible implications. I feel like that is the most attractive thing that you could probably display to your significant other.
Yeah. The lighter that you can keep it, and the more cool and even keel you can be when serious shit happens. Like, consistency.
That's probably the most attractive thing that you could probably possess as an individual.
Consistency is like undervalued. Because like
too.
I used to be used to be's don't get no honey, but I used to be very emotional. Like I would be emotionally driven to the extent of
So I don't mean to rush you,
but it's 8:00. I have to work tomorrow. Do you guys want to just pick this up tomorrow? We've been going for an hour and a half.
This is up to you at this point.
I'm the one that has to work. My wife did say, "Hey, it's getting late." Yeah, let's just call it a day.
Okay.
All right.
Fair.
This was a fun topic. I don't really know, but
Should
I make my Snapchat message now?
You know what? Let's save it. Are you busy tomorrow?
God, what am I doing tomorrow? There is something I'm doing tomorrow. I could have sworn.
At what time?
Oh yeah, no, I'm doing rock climbing tomorrow.
At what time?
Probably morning until like afternoon.
Well,
Evening time.
I get off at 4, and I can be here at like 4:15. Do you think you could be here at like 4:30?
Let's say 5 because I think I'm also supposed to be meeting some friends at a brewery.
5 is.
yeah. I don't know about you, but
Yeah,
you got
5 might
dinner
be a
around
little
that
bit
time.
too late.
Why is that?
Cause like I was thinking about getting home at 6.
You still recording?
Yeah.
We can end it off. We can